Welcome to this topic, and this is a new topic where we'll be talking about air, but specifically about air pollution. This is a two-part topic, so this is the first one. So we have what exactly is air pollution. Air pollution is the introduction of harmful substances. Take note of this: harmful substances into the air, and the harmful substances are called pollutants. So we have a normal composition of air. For example, air is normally composed of oxygen. We have a bit of nitrogen. We have carbon dioxide at a minimal level. Then we have inert gases. Inert gases like argon and some water vapor. H2O is this is the composition of air, the normal composition of air. So once pollutants are released, pollutants are harmful substances into the air. What happens is that it affects this composition of air. And so once the composition of air is affected, we term that to be air pollution. Once this composition is affected, the air is polluted, and then we have air pollution. And so let us continue. What are the major air pollutants? Look at it this way. For example, when you're talking about land pollution, you are thinking of like nylons, you are thinking of plastics and all those um, examples. You are thinking of, let me say, paper. Those are examples of land pollution. But we're talking about air, and air are gases. So air is a combination or a mixture of gases. So what would pollute the air is also gases. So the major air pollutants are this. There are five major air pollutants. First one, we have the oxides of carbon, the oxides of sulfur, the oxides of nitrogen. Now, whenever you hear oxide, it means oxygen plus the compound. Oxygen plus the compound. So for example, oxides of carbon means there is a compound that has oxygen plus, sorry, not compound, oxygen plus element. Is there an eraser here? Let me get, there's no an eraser. But this is not compound. Let me adjust this. Oxygen plus element. So anytime you hear oxides of carbon, what it means is that you are having carbon plus oxygen in different forms. Oxides of sulfur, sulfur plus oxygen. Oxides of nitrogen, oxygen on plus nitrogen. So for this particular video, these are the three things we'll be talking about for now. In the next video, we'll be talking about hydrocarbons and chlorofluorocarbons. So next we have oxides of carbon. There are two major oxides of carbon that are air pollutants. So there are two major oxides of carbon. The first oxide of carbon is carbon monoxide, which is also called carbon 2 oxide, and the second oxide of carbon is carbon dioxide. So these are the two oxides of carbon that are air pollutants: carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is also called carbon 2 oxide. Carbon dioxide is also called carbon 4 oxide. So we'll be talking about carbon monoxide first of all. What exactly is carbon monoxide? Carbon monoxide is mostly found by the incomplete combustion of fuels. The incomplete combustion of fuels. So carbon monoxide is found in the incomplete combustion of fuels. So examples like petrol, diesel, these are examples of where carbon monoxide is found, and is also found by faulty engines. So the reason why there is incomplete combustion of fuels in these vehicles is because of faulty engines. And what is the danger level? The danger level is that high level of carbon monoxide can cause death. I think it was last 2 or 3 years, this group of boys at Alaba Market, they switched on their generator they were living in a shop, and they switched on their generator together, and they were sleeping in the shop, and they came to discover that they had died. And what killed them? Because of the incomplete combustion of the petrol that they used, and they were inhaling carbon monoxide, it eventually caused death. And what this is called carbon monoxide poison. Let's move on. So how does carbon monoxide affect the body? How does carbon monoxide affect the body? The first thing is that large quantity of carbon monoxide, when inhaled, combines with the hemoglobin in the in our body. Remember, hemoglobin is what helps in transporting oxygen. So oxygen plus hemoglobin will give you oxyhemoglobin. And once carbon monoxide is inhaled, instead of oxygen being combined, what you then have is carbon dioxide being combined with hemoglobin, and then you have carboxyhemoglobin, and then it transmits the carbon monoxide around the blood vessel, and then it reduces the carrying capacity of the blood. And once oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is reduced, what then happens is that because oxygen is not flowing around the blood, your brain goes in through what they call oxygen deficiency mode, which is brain death. And once brain death happens, the person dies. So this also happens in another example of if somebody is put in an oxygen deprived environment. This is exactly what happens. And so once oxygen doesn't flow, the brain dies, and also there is death due to oxygen deprivation to the tissues. Remember, we'll get to this in respiration in biology. One of the major fulcrums one of the major purposes of oxygen is helping in aerobic respiration. And aerobic respiration is the form of respiration that requires oxygen, and is the one that produces the most ATP. ATP is this unit of energy in the body. And so once oxygen is not supplied to the tissues, aerobic respiration cannot happen, ATP is not produced, and then the tissues or the cells in the tissues does not have enough energy, and as a result, they die. Next, we have carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is produced in large amounts by combustion processes. For example, if you burn things, if you burn paper, or you burn wood, paper is essentially from wood. Carbon compounds are in that, combined with the oxygen that allows for combustion to happen, you have carbon dioxide. That's why carbon dioxide is very, very common, and it's the climate changer, because we release a lot of carbon dioxide every year. And how does this affect? The first thing is that it causes global warming and greenhouse effect. Now, let's try and understand greenhouse effects a bit more. I'm going to see if I can move this out of the screen. Okay, so let's move this away. What exactly is greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect basically is a situation whereby the sunlight of the earth has direct access into the earth. So normally the earth is surrounded by an atmosphere, right? And so the sunlight of the earth hits the atmosphere and warms the earth, but the heat is meant to be reflected back. The heat is meant to be reflected back by the atmosphere, by this region. The heat is meant to be reflected back. But if we're having a greenhouse effect, it means that the atmosphere is not strong enough to reflect the heat. Why? Because carbon dioxide combines with the ozone layer to form. When carbon dioxide combines with the ozone layer, it releases a molecule of oxygen. So you have carbon monoxide, and you still have carbon dioxide, and then you have oxygen, O2. And so once oxygen is released, there is no ozone layer to protect the earth, and then the heat that is released by the sun stays on earth. And because of that, the earth will gradually become hotter and hotter. You can testify to this. You can testify that of recent, the earth has become, or your environment has become gradually more hot and hotter day by day. And so what are the key greenhouse gases? The key greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane. Keep this in mind. This is a place where questions can come. The three greenhouse gases, major ones: carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane. So how does human activities increase carbon dioxide? Like I said, industrial revolution by burning. I don't want you to think of just the idea of complaints. I want you to think about it in your environment. Anything that there is burning releases carbon dioxide. Vehicle emissions. Remember, vehicle emissions release carbon monoxide and also carbon dioxide sometimes, depending on if there is a carbon dioxide is a product of complete combustion of fuel. Carbon monoxide is a product of incomplete combustion. So regardless, use of vehicles that uses petrol increases the carbon concentration in the atmosphere, either as carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide. Then wildfires, large scale burning of forests, then aeroplane fuel. Remember, complete combustion of fuel happens in all means of transportation that uses a fuel. So either it's aeroplane, helicopter, what have you, vehicles, bicycle, tricycles, motorcycles. All of this increases the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So what is the effect of global warming? Once carbon dioxide is increased in the atmosphere, I've explained this, is whereby the earth becomes warmer. The earth becomes warmer than it is expected to. That's why you notice that of recent, for example, my brother makes this joke, in December, there is no Harmattan. And usually by now, you would have this very chill period of Harmattan in December. But now, we don't have that very chill period. Why? Because carbon dioxide has been increased in the atmosphere and there is global warming, meaning the cold regions are going to be more and more hotter. This, for example, Alaska is losing their ice and there is high global temperature. There's a very high global temperature happening right now. So how do we prevent global warming? A very good example of this is use renewable energy source like solar panel. This is a solar panel, solar energy, wind energy. I saw this example of in Poland. What they did is on the oceans, wind blows on the ocean, so they set up wind vane, and that's what's supplying everybody electricity. Another major way is through the use of electric cars, because the major source of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide complete combustion, incomplete combustion, carbon monoxide is through vehicles. So either air travel, land travel, any of all those stuff. So if our aeroplanes are electrically driven, your cars are electrically driven, your helicopters, any of all those things are electrically driven or charged, it means that there is a large decrease in carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, and then global warming does not happen. So we'll stop in this video. In the next video, we'll talk about oxide of sulfur and nitrogen.